It's now time to say hello and welcome to a new piece of software, and that is pdfToolbox in your Elastic Cloud. Docker images. pdfToolbox 16 already also is available as a Docker image, but that to the outside is controlled by our command line. Here the Docker image provides a REST API. So there is a REST API server, and that means you can easily integrate this pdfToolbox Docker image into your Elastic Cloud and control it, talk to it using REST API. It's ready to use. And other than the existing Docker image, it also provides queuing. So you can call it more than just once, and the image will take care of not forgetting so you call it once and then it's not ready to process. It will not forget your second call. It will remember it and process it once it has time. For licensing, you have two options. So normally as an end user, you would use our license server, and it's also for OEM customers, it's also possible to use it with an OEM license. And the same system, the same kind of Docker image is also available with PDF chip inside. So if you're interested, what should you do? First, you need the Docker environment. So you need to install Docker. Then second thing that you need, and there you have to contact us. You need, if you use license server, you need a wallet ID or an OEM license. And then together with the wallet ID, you would receive the download URL for the Docker image and a YAML file. And then with that YAML file, you would adjust so that the YAML file has and knows your wallet ID. And then you can just run Docker compose up, and that will download the Docker image. It will create an image that has your wallet ID baked in, and then you can immediately use it. And then if you want to try it on your computer, you can easily access it by localhost and the port 4321. And then you can see what you can see here on top of me, the cloud services UI, where you can then that also provides some documentation about the API. So if you click on documentation, you will always see what calls are available, and this somehow leads you through all the different calls that are available. The other kind of documentation is a new Swagger. It's not documentation, it's documentation, I think. But documentation isn't bad actually. But anyway, so that's also available. And if you're interested, we can provide that to you. And for the ones that have ever played with pdfToolbox in the cloud, the REST API is exactly the same. That brings us to the next.
Yes, we have one new additional report page for our PDF pre-flight reports. So probably you know that report. You can see it here on the screenshot as well. This is the default template that is shipped with pdfToolbox desktop. So you can generate these reports, and on the first page you always get information about your pre-flight result. And starting with pdfToolbox 14, we added additional report pages that you can order to provide more information of the pre-flighted PDF file. So for example, you can add a spot color information, a page information, separation previews, and much more. And we received a feature request from a customer that it would be nice to also have an additional report page that provides information about the fonts that are part of the document. So this is now added with pdfToolbox 17. You can now order this font information report page. And let me zoom in a little bit. You can see you have then information about the font name, the font type, the font embedding, and the font encoding. If you want to know how you can generate these additional report pages, we have online documentation for that, or we also have a pdfToolbox explained video where we guide you step by step how to do that. And the next one is also related to reports, but more on the technical side, and more for the ones that already use the compare feature in pdfToolbox, where you can compare PDF files against each other. And up until pdfToolbox 17, you only had the option to create a PDF compare report, where the differences between pages or was highlighted visually. And of course, this is not useful for automated workflows. So with pdfToolbox 17, we also introduced a JSON compare report where you also have information about the differences, but that can be used in automated workflows. And you can see you can order that at 3 different places. The first one is within a process plan. There you have a compare PDF step, and after this transition line, you can order this report. And then also under the view menu, so the compare documents tool, you can generate this report, or of course also as a CLI action with -- format is similar JSON.
Okay. Yes, I'm learning, Mr. Director. So next feature, this is very, very geeky. I love it. There have been long-standing requests to allow a little bit more in JavaScript when it comes to making API calls. So if you have done anything with JavaScript in pdfToolbox, then you know that there is an app object, and that app object has an HTTP object, and that could be used to, or HTTP property, I should say, that can be used to do HTTP calls. So it could do the first 2 things that you could see there, the get call with a URL, and then the get call with the URL and options. Except that there was only one option that was supported. So it was kind of limited, and you could not do post calls or any type of authentication or anything like that. And the main reason for that was, I think there are 2 reasons. One is that it's always difficult to know what people are actually going to use. And so sometimes you have to implement something basic and then see what the questions are that come back. And the second one was security. You don't want to be in a position where someone can create a process plan that has some embedded JavaScript that starts doing all kinds of malicious or weird things if they would give the process plan to someone else and that other person runs it. So there was some concern, at least, about that. So let me go to pdfToolbox, and I will look at a small process plan that I have here, and I need to open it, and then I also need to open the script for you. And what happens here is, I told you it was going to be geeky. What happens here is that I am doing a get call, and I am doing that with this options object. And so instead of just calling a URL, the URL is called joke of the day, by the way. Instead of just calling that URL, I'm giving it a bunch of options. You can see the timeout there. I can specify the protocol. I can specify headers and a return type. And if I say return type is string, then the whole body of the message is returned as a stringified JSON. If I say the return type is an object, I get a JavaScript object back. And so this would not have worked in pdfToolbox 16, but it does work in pdfToolbox 17, but only if I have a blessing file somewhere. So there is a location in the library for pdfToolbox on my computer where I have to create a specific folder, and then in that folder needs to be a specific file, and that's a JSON file where I have to give permission for certain URLs. And once I do that, then I can get these calls to work. And to show you the difference here is I have commented out the username and password for now. So I'm just using the get call together with these options. That is always going to work. And if I look at the result, then for this particular URL, I get back a joke, and I get back, I can see what the headers were that were returned and so on. So this works. But if I now go here and I comment out these slashes, then it should give me actually an error. Okay, so let's do this. Let's save it and open it again. But I have blessed it probably, of course, and which means that there are not going to be an error. It behaved differently when I tried this just before the session, obviously. But so this will only work once I have a username and a password in the get call. It will only work if the URL I have in there is blessed. If I don't do a get call, but I do a post call, then it immediately will fail unless, again, that URL is blessed. And that means you need to have not only a process plan that makes the call, but you also need to have access to the system where this process plan is running, and you need to physically put a file there before it works. This is inconvenient, but it is there so that these calls will only be executed in an environment that you really have control over, and that you don't have to worry when you get a process plan or a profile from someone else that they put something in there that you don't know about and that could do all kinds of weird little tricks. Okay, let me get out of this one, and then we go back to the presentation. Next one is specifically for OEM environments. In OEM environments for OEM partners, we have a product that is called pdfToolbox Portal. This is a UI framework that uses pdfToolbox, the core engine in the background, but it is pre-made UI. And the cool thing about that, of course, for an OEM partner is that they don't have to build their own UI and then integrate pdfToolbox. This is something that they can use out of the gate, and so that improves time to market if an OEM wants to start with a new solution. The cool thing is, as I said, it is built on top of pdfToolbox, and that means that it can also run pdfToolbox profiles and process plans. And so you can create those in the desktop application, and then you have to export them from pdfToolbox desktop and then give them to pdfToolbox Portal. But in order to do so, there is an XML file that is required as well. And that XML file contains things like translations. It can contain things like additional definitions, type definitions for variables so that they are shown in a nice way inside of pdfToolbox portal when they are run. That XML file is required, and it is not trivial to create. And so in pdfToolbox 17, you now have this export for pdfToolbox portal menu item that you can use. And that gives you not only the KFPX file that is exported, but next to it also an XML file with the same name. And then both of those are ready to import in pdfToolbox portal. You could still change the XML file, add additional translations or variable types or definitions, but the basic file that is exported at least gives you the structure that you need.
Question, do you have a portal visual supporting how it looks like?
So the question is, do I have a pdfToolbox portal visual? I don't have it on here in this presentation, but you can look at the website, I believe. And actually what you should do is come to FESPA next month and come visit us in Barcelona, because Dietrich and Jeremy and I will be there. So we will be more than happy to talk to you there, or just send us an email after this presentation or now, and then we can get you all the visuals that you want. Yeah? Okay. One more feature that is for OEMs, and this is about ganging and nesting. And so just so that we all understand what we're talking about here, ganging, for at least my definition, different people use different terminology, but we're talking about having one or more PDF files that need to be imposed on the same sheet or on the same roll. And we're talking about things like nesting or true shape nesting, where a cut contour is used to optimize the sheet usage. Together with pdfToolbox 17, and to be very clear, this is not part of pdfToolbox 17, but we are releasing this together with pdfToolbox 17, there is a new OEM module, very simply called PDF Nest. It's an OEM module, so it's only available to OEM partners. And it is API based, and it can help you to get correct ganging or nesting of PDF files. So this is a separate module, web-based, where you can call a REST API. You can give that REST API information about one or more PDF files. That is a JSON that you pass to an API call. You can optionally include SVG, either in the JSON or referenced SVG files, and those then define the cut contour for the jobs that you're passing to PDF Nest. And then you can pass a whole bunch of parameters that tell PDF Nest what kind of optimization you want to do, what kind of nesting and ganging you want to do, what the sheet size is, whether it's a roll or not, whether you have restrictions on if you want to do print and cuts, maybe there are restrictions to the size of the output for the cutting machinery that is included in the process. So you can pass a whole bunch of these parameters. The calculation is done, and then there is a result that is also a JSON that comes back, and that shows you what the sheet optimization is, the best optimization you have for the files that you passed in. This supports sheet and roll-based imposition workflows. It supports things like ganging, including quantities, and so quantity optimization. can I do this all with one sheet? And if so, how many times do I have to print it? Or is it multiple sheets? And how many times do I print each individual sheet? And so on. It can do rectangular ganging. It can do cut contour based nesting. So all of that is supported. And what you see here is just an example, but on the left, you see a fragment of what the JSON is that is sent to this service. On the right, you see a possible visualization of the answer. So the service just gives you a JSON. This demo setup that we used here uses the return JSON to visualize what that means. So what the output would look like. And you have all of these statistics that you see at the bottom that, if you integrate this into your solution, could be used to then create a ganging report so that the operator knows how many times do I need to print this and so on. And so once again, not part, strictly speaking, of the pdfToolbox 17 release, not even part of the same library that OEM partners are using, but released in together with pdfToolbox 17. If you are interested in this, we of course have documentation that we can share, and then also API documentation that we can share with all of the parameters and the details of what is supported and not. Get in contact with us and we will be happy to tell you more. And then back to Dietrich.
Yes, thanks. And back to pdfToolbox 17 core, but we stay a bit in the area of nesting, at least a bit. So this is a new fix-up, and that has the title Outline Vector Objects. And that comes in handy and helpful when you think and want to do nesting. So what it basically does, it prepares a cut line or something in a PDF file for nesting by outlining it. So you want to create an outline so that you have a shape that you can then put into your nesting algorithm. And that could be problematic because, as we can see here in this small example, we have a small gap in our cut line. And then you could use the shapes feature in pdfToolbox to close it. But normally the shapes feature would render and trace. That would eat up time. And then if you only need that result to do proper nesting, you don't want to run this heavy process. And this is really algorithms, so no tracing is involved. It really looks at the vector and does its magic with it. And what it will do, it will create a new stroked object that you could then, for instance, use in nesting, but of course you could also do other things with it, just using it as a cut line, for instance. So I've mentioned small gaps in the cut line. This is an even more dramatic issue. Often the nicer design applications, actually, if you create a dashed rectangle, don't create a real rectangle. Instead, they create something that consists of 5 objects, just the corners, because these smart design applications make sure that the corners are always filled with a line, and that can only be achieved if you create 4 lines and the corners separately. And I will show what that means in a short demo. So let's go to pdfToolbox, and we already have a file here, and that has 5 images, and we could just use Object Inspector to see what we have. So here we can see there is 2 objects on top of each other, and then the top object is here, as we can see here in that area, just the corners, and behind I have one stroke, as we can see here, and same here on that side, the corners again, and one stroke. So, and in a nesting engine or in whatever environment, we want this to be restored as a single object. So let's go to the next page. Here I have an object with some line, probably not a cut line, but just some complicated object, and I want to understand and know the outline of it so that I have something for my nesting algorithm, for instance. Next one, so just some lines that are close to each other. And that is also another complicated object. Again, I would want to have the outline of these two overlapping forms. Oh, that is the Belgium keyboard. And that is, more graphic art styline-like thing, but it looks pretty nice. But if we zoom into that, we see it just looks pretty nice. So I hope that you can see it. Here I have indeed a gap. All the different parts here of my cut contour are apparently single objects, so not connected with each other. So nothing that I could use easily in nesting. Yeah, and I found the right keystroke even. Anyway, so let's now try it. I have here my new fix-up, and if I now run it, and I will run it in test mode. So as you can see, so my fix-up creates a new die line, a new cut contour object in green. So here we have the expected result. It is now closed. It's a single pass. And I can go to the second page. Again, we have what we wanted to have, just the outline of our vector object here. On the next page, we have 3 outlines. Again, I think what we expected to get here for this object as well. The overlapping objects are identified, and we have a new green cut line just at the outer edges of that combined object. And same here. We use the looper feature to zoom in, and then you can see here again for the packaging, it has created a new cut contour at the outline at the outer edge of our packaging. Yeah. So just a few examples so that you hopefully understand how that works. And that brings us back to our presentation and to the next thing that I want to mention, and that is test mode. It's for the ones that once in a while want to look into the inner structures of PDF files. So sometimes if you want to really understand what's going on in a PDF file, you want to dig a little deeper, and what we can see here is the content stream of a page, so a very simple page. And if you would want to do that in test mode up until today, you'd have to leave test mode. You have to run the fix-up again, save the result, and then use Explore PDF from the pdfToolbox menu. With 17, you just have a new button here, Explore PDF, and then you can switch from what you've seen until pdfToolbox 17, the result. You can switch to Explore PDF, and then you can immediately see the internal structure of that PDF file. So at least for the ones who work with that, it's very, very helpful. It already saved me some time. So next one is merge input files. So what you can do, and that is command line feature. What you can do on command line, you specify pdfToolbox, profile, and then not just one PDF file, but a number of files, and that doesn't have to be PDF files only. It can also be PNG files and WebP files starting today, Office files, and then each file will be processed separately. And out of your 4 input files, you will get 4 output files. But what if that is not what you want to see? You want to see just one file. That would mean in pdfToolbox 16, you would first have to merge them, which is possible. But in pdfToolbox 17, you have something that's more convenient. You have the merge input files parameter, and that will merge them before they are processed. So you cannot really see it because it's behind me in my little drawing here. All the 4 files, and all the 4 files are merged into one and then processed. And there it's important to know that the order of input files is kept. So while in the other example it's not really important in which order the files are processed, here it is. So the files will be merged in the order they are specified on command line. And that brings us to real intelligence.
Yes, every time we have something like this, I say the same thing at PDF camps, but it's true. I think that we have said everything there is to say about imposition, and every time there is more things that we want to talk about or that people ask for. During the last PDF camp, I talked a little bit about this particular topic. So, as you probably know, you can use and you should use JavaScript to do imposition in pdfToolbox. The configuration that you create is written by using JavaScript. And it's standard JavaScript with some extensions that pdfToolbox adds in the mix. But you have to understand how to write JavaScript and then also what these extensions are that pdfToolbox gives you. And of course, LLMs such as ChatGPT or Claude are very good at doing this for you now. And so the thought was, can we not use this to make it easier for you? And this is not something that we have integrated into the product. But what I've done is I've experimented a little bit with this because I wanted to get to the point where it worked from the first go and that there are not a whole bunch of hallucinations that are going on. And so what I did was figure out how to set up a project in the correct way with all of the necessary files you need in order to provide a good framework for these engines. And then I tried that out in ChatGPT and Claude to make sure it worked. And actually it works good enough that we've used this in some production features of the actual product. And you don't know which one, and I'm not going to tell you because it's in the presentation for tomorrow. But it works pretty well. And so we thought, why don't we set up a webinar where we can share that with people? And you can scan the QR code there. For once, it is not hidden behind me. That's probably because I didn't make this slide. And Sarah just pasted this the URL for this event in the chat as well. So what this will be about is just how do you use something like ChatGPT? That's the engine I will probably use. What do you need in order for it to understand what you want to do and to get correct results that you can just copy paste from ChatGPT into pdfToolbox, and it works from the first time. Shameless self-marketing is what that is called. And then we have 10 more minutes, I think. And it's customary when you get to the last feature in a row of features in a presentation like this to then say, oh, one more thing. And there is indeed one more thing here. And let me go to pdfToolbox, and I'm going to get rid of this file, and we'll take our nice chameleon, the callas chameleon. And then the new feature has to do with imposition. And let me tell you what the reason is that we did this. There are two main goals for this. The first is that it is not easy to write JavaScript. And so if you want to use some of the power of the imposition engine that you have in pdfToolbox, which is very good, then it's annoying that you can only do that by writing JavaScript. And so we thought, well, maybe there is a way of giving you some user interface that would make it easier. In a way, you already have that. The switchboard does that, and it does things like step and repeat and fill page and so on. But it is also very, very limited. And there are many things that you cannot modify. And it's kind of trial and error if you can do something with it at all. So that's one problem that we wanted to solve. The second problem is more my problem. And I think, looking at the list of names of the people that join today, it's also the problem of a lot of you. What you want, you're okay with writing JavaScript, but it would be nice to have a starting point and then only have to do the modifications that you really have to do. While now you kind of have to start from scratch. And so that was the second goal. Maybe we can figure something out where you can get a starting point and then only do the necessary modifications. Okay, enough talk. So what you have under the Tools menu in pdfToolbox 17 is a new dialog window called the Imposition Wizard. And when I do that, and let me get the whole window, it's a pretty big window. I can get the whole window on screen. On the left-hand side, I have the, I need to see where I need to point there on the left-hand side. I have all the parameters of the imposition that I want to do. And on the right-hand side, you have a preview. And what is really, really nice is that if I look here on the left-hand side, and I look at these parameters, that's not what I wanted to do, too much zooming in, going in, so here. Let me use this as an example. So if I start playing with the margins in these parameters, then you can see in the preview part that it immediately shows you what the effect is of that parameter. Yeah. And that is one of the things that is very annoying in the current implementation in the switchboard, not only that it's limited, but also that you really don't have an idea of what changing some of these parameters will do. While here, you immediately see that. And so I have one section of parameters that talks about what is the output sheet, what is the size of the output sheet, what are the margins, what is the alignment of this block of imposed pages on my imposed sheet. I have a second smaller area for marks, and there I could switch on internal marks, for example, and you can see then that it adds crop marks in the middle of my sheet as well. I probably don't need that in this case. And I can also change the parameters for these marks. And then I can also go to the imposition method. And I've selected step and repeat here. And that now gives me settings for the step and repeat imposition method. So I can choose for a number of rows and columns, or to fill the sheet, and maybe I can do a better job if I allow rotation, not in this case, but it may still be the case for one of the other output sheets, right? And you can see that the imposition is smart enough to look at each page individually and then give me the best fill for the sheet depending on the size of the input page. And if I prefer that, I can switch off the preview. I can have a lower resolution or higher resolution preview depending on what I want to see and probably how fast your computer is and what you feel comfortable with. But it's pretty fast in general, and it's nicely cached and so on. I can zoom in and out here to see details and so on. So that is all really, really nice. Now, if our director could hide me for a second, actually it's not going to help because it's behind my computer. Let me move the window instead. Sorry. It was a good idea, but there. Now you can see. So if you look at the bottom of the window here, there is an apply button, a test button, and a close button. Close, of course, does nothing. It just closes the window and that's it. Test button will run the imposition in test mode. So this brings up test mode and does the exact imposition that we have specified. And so the preview is pretty good, of course, but it's still a preview. If you want to look at the actual PDF file and make sure this works, then click test. It opens in test mode and you can see what happens. If I click apply, it is going to ask me where to save the result, and it's going to apply this imposition with all of the settings that I have now configured as an imposed file. So I can use the imposition wizard to quickly do imposition of files in pdfToolbox Desktop. And that was one of the goals. I'll come back to what the different imposition methods are that we support. But before I go there, we had a secondary goal. And the secondary goal was, how do you make it easier for someone like me who is comfortable with JavaScript, but of course lazy as every developer, as every good developer. How do you make it easier for those people? And then there is this Save as Action button on the left. What that does is when I click that, it creates a new impose action, and then it gives me an imposition configuration. So it gives me a sheet config file, which will be empty, and a run list file that has all of the JavaScript goodies behind this. And this is not protected or hidden or whatever. You can just open this in the variable editor, and then you can see all the JavaScript that runs behind this. It is made with a block of variables at the beginning so that you can very easily change things. And because this is now an action and that you have it available, you can very easily, let me close it down again. I could very easily just save this somewhere and then make these last modifications that perhaps are still necessary. Example, this is exactly what I want, except that I also need a data matrix code at the bottom, right? How do I do that? Well, I could set this up the way I want it. Then I say save as action. And then in the JavaScript that I get, I add a little bit of code to create this data matrix at the bottom. Something that we introduced in pdfToolbox 16 is that you can add decorations to imposition configurations. So I could easily do that. So you can use this imposition wizard also to do things like prepare something that comes close to what you want and then do the final touches in JavaScript. So which imposition methods do we support? Well, in pdfToolbox 17, you will find step and repeat, fill page. So take the pages from a PDF file and place as many of them as possible on individual imposed sheets, and fill page the way it is implemented here, supports cut and stack. So that's just an option that you can switch on. And then we have one for booklets, which is what you expect. I have a PDF file consisting out of individual pages, and then I want to print them as a booklet. This will allow you to do that. And a little bit of a special one for book covers, and I will show this one because it is not as commonly known as the others, but one, and actually let me close this, and then we will go to another file that is probably better. So this one here, what do I have in this file? I have an outside cover page. This is the inside of the front cover, the inside of the back cover, and the outside of the back cover. And now I can go back to my imposition wizard, and there it lets me choose now where is my outside cover. And so I can choose between first page, second page, and some other options, or I can just choose a specific page in there. I can do that for the outside cover and the inside cover. If I have a page that represents the spine or that I want to put on the spine, I can use that as well. And then I can ask pdfToolbox to look at the width of that page and use that, or I can use a specific spine size. I can fill the spine with a color, and unlike my colleagues, I know how to use a proper keyboard. By the way, I think I came up with a solution for that for the next session, but we will have to experiment. But so I can also fill this with a color if I don't want to have a page for the spine, or I could just leave it empty. And the imposition will create either one page for the outside cover or a page for the inside and the outside cover. Yeah. So that's it. New window, something where you have a lot of parameters you can set. I am sure some of you are going to come up with parameters we have not thought of. That's fine. We are looking forward to the feature requests. But you can set a whole lot of parameters already for 4 different imposition methods. And then you have a preview side. You can run it on individual files, or you can use it to save an action and then modify the JavaScript that you get from there.